again, we'll turn to Matthew chapter 7. Read verses 21 through verse 23. Not every one that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father, which is in heaven. Many will say to me in that day of judgment, Lord, Lord, have not we prophesied in thy name, and in thy name have cast out devils, and in thy name done many wonderful works? And then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity. Again, these are down through verse 27, the concluding thoughts of the sermon. It's a summarization of the sermon. It's a challenge concerning the main idea, which again is your righteousness must exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees. So there must be a righteousness that goes beyond mere external obedience. That's what Christ is saying. There has to be an internal righteousness that will be worked out by the Holy Spirit. Notice over in Philippians chapter 2, verses 12 and verse 13. Wherefore, my beloved, as you've always obeyed, not as in my presence only, but now much more in my absence, work out your salvation. Again, it's work out what's within. You cannot work out what's not there. Work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. And here's how it's worked out. For it is God which worketh in you. And what does God work in us? To will and to do. To will and to do of His good pleasure. And I believe that that is true of every child of God. They have the imputed righteousness of Jesus Christ, Christ within, the Holy Spirit working with them, results in the outward display of the imparted righteousness of Jesus Christ. That is the righteousness that exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees. No one gets to heaven without the righteousness of Jesus Christ. So it's basically living out God's workmanship. Ephesians 2 verse 10. So we've seen thus far, there's a warning. In these verses there's a warning against deception. And this concerning the most important matter there is, salvation. And we saw last week that deception has many sources. It can come from Satan. He is the deceiver. It can come from man. There are deceivers. And in our own heart is deceitful above all things. So the danger of deception is very real. The danger of deception regarding salvation is very real. It's a real danger. Make your calling and election sure. Make it certain. Don't be afraid. You shouldn't be. To examine your salvation. Examine your profession of faith. So the first warning regards deception in this matter. Then we come to a warning against profession without works to back up or to align with that profession. Again, this section of the Sermon on the Mount we've entitled A Life Above and Beyond Mere Profession. So we have this warning in verse 21. Not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father, which is in heaven. So what Christ says here first of all is not everyone who claims to be in the narrow way is. Not everyone who claims to be saved is. Not everyone who knows doctrinally that he is Lord and even outwardly professes, refers to him as such, does not make salvation, doesn't equate. Not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven. This is a simple statement of fact. Not everyone that saith shall. Not everyone that saith shall. So what's that tell us? Well, it tells us that profession is not enough. Profession by itself will not do. Here it is, a profession of personal relationship. Lord, Lord. Not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord. They're claiming a relationship with Christ. Just because one says they have a relationship with Christ doesn't mean it's so. They can be deceived. They can be flat out lying too. Profession's not enough. Mere claims to faith do not make faith a reality. Just a claim. Well, I believe. I believe. That doesn't make it reality. Just because we say something. What Christ is speaking of and warning against in verse 21 is a profession without practice. And that's confirmed by the next line. But he that doeth the will of my Father, which is in heaven. So he's speaking of a profession without practice. Again, none of us always practice what we profess. That's not what's being talked about here. This is a continual. This is constant. Someone professes something, but there's just, the evidence just isn't there. What they say. It's not there. Again, I could tell you that this afternoon, I went out in the street by our house and I got run over by a semi. Would you believe it? No, there's no evidence. There's no, well, it must be so. He said so. There's no evidence. None. And that's what Christ is speaking of. But he that doeth. So Jesus states very plainly that one can confess Jesus as Lord and, again, be void of salvation. One can profess Jesus as Lord and ignore and reject His commands. He says, you cannot confess me as Lord and ignore and reject my commands and be saved. The profession does not align with the practice. It says, Luke put it in Luke 6:46, why call ye me Lord, Lord, and do not the things which I say? Christ was challenging them. Why do you call me Lord? Which means master. And you don't do what I say. You look at individuals that profess salvation, and they're always looking for loopholes to avoid the commands of Christ. That speaks volumes. That speaks volumes regarding their salvation experience. So the problem here was works did not align with profession. It's what Paul wrote, notice over in Titus chapter 1. Titus 1, verse 16. They profess that they know God. They profess that they know God. But, okay, now there's a problem. They profess they know God. That's wonderful. But, there's a problem. But in works, outward life, they deny Him. They don't deny Him with their lips. They profess they know God. But their works, their life practice is a denial of what they say. Their outward acts did not align with their profession. In fact, their works not only did not align, their works are a denial of Him. In works they deny Him. Their works, their life are a denial of the one they profess to know. Then notice the character of their works or life. It's abominable and disobedient. Well, they say they're saved. But their works deny Him. Their works are abominable and disobedient. And concerning their own character, unto every good work reprobate. That's devoid of God. In all their works, and in their so-called good works, they're all devoid of God. But, again, remember, they profess. They profess they know God. So though they had a profession of God, in reality, it was a profession void of God. It's Isaiah 29, if we go over there. And Jesus quoted this in Matthew 15:8. But in Isaiah 29, verse 13. Wherefore the Lord saith, for as much as this people draw near me with their mouth, that is, they profess right things, they say right things, and with their lips they do honor me. Again, that's great, that's fantastic, but there's a problem. have removed their heart far from me. They say one thing, they do another. And their fear toward me, their reverence toward me, is taught by the precept of men. In other words, there's nothing in them that's telling them to reverence God, leading them to reverence God. It's all by precept. They were religious formalists. And again, Christ quoted that in Matthew 15:8. Not everyone that saith shall. There is a faith or a profession that says right things, but saying the right things does not equate to a profession. Not everyone that saith, Lord, Lord, shall. Lord, Lord. We believe that Christ is Lord. Orthodox creed does not save. They say, Lord, Lord. I never knew them. And I'll say, depart from me, ye workers of iniquity. Orthodox creed has never saved a single soul. Not one. Soundness in theology does not equal salvation. Soundness in theology is very important, extreme importance. But it doesn't save. Never has, never will. So from all this, we see that there is a profession of faith, but the works are contrary to what is professed. There is also a profession of faith that is without works. That is, there's just nothing there to back up the profession of faith. And that's what James addressed. And if we go over there in James chapter 2, verses 14 through 16. Again, all of these verses that we're dealing with here in the Sermon on the Mount, what James talks about here. People often try to get around what is being said here. It's like all the Word of God. It says what it says, and it means what it says. But here in James 2, verses 14 through 26, James exposes the fallacy of mere intellectual belief. Why do you think he did that? Because it was a problem. It was something he was dealing with. So he exposes the fallacy of just an intellectual belief. The Christian life is more than an intellectual belief. Salvation is more than an intellectual belief. He says in verse 14, what doth it profit? What doth it profit? He asks the same question in verse 16. What doth it profit? What gain is there? In verses 15 through 20, if a brother or sister, that is, if a brother or sister be naked and destitute of daily food, and one of you say unto them, the brother or sister that's in need, depart in peace, be ye warmed and filled. Notwithstanding, you give them not those things which are needful to the body. What doth it profit? There's no profit to them. There's no profit to you. Even so he's drawing a comparison. Faith if it hath not works, is dead. Being alone. Being alone. Minus works. Yea, a man may say, Thou hast faith, and I have works. Show me thy faith without thy works, and I will show thee my faith by my works. That's how we show faith, by our works. Thou believest there is one God. Thou doest well. It's a good thing to believe that. Anybody, whether saved or unsaved, if they believe there is a God, that's a good thing to believe. The devils also believe. The demons know there's one God. They believe truth. They believe the deity of Christ. They believe in the resurrection. They believe in the cross. And they tremble. But are they saved? No. But wilt thou know, O vain man, that faith without works is dead. So in verses 15 through 20, he speaks of a mere professed faith. It's empty, it's dead, and it corresponds to that of demons. Now, if you said, I'm going to speak of something that's empty, dead, and corresponds with demons, you wouldn't think of faith. But that's what he's saying. There is a faith that is empty. There is a faith that is dead. There is a faith that corresponds to demons. And it's a faith that does not have works that align. Though faith is necessary to salvation, there is a faith that does not save. This is what James is telling us. It's what Jesus was telling us also. Notice in Jeremiah chapter 5. You can keep a mark there in James, but Jeremiah chapter 5. Verses 2 through 4. And though they say, the Lord liveth, surely they swear falsely. They not only swear it, they believe it strongly. They not only say it, but they believe it strongly. They swear falsely. Lord, are not thine eyes upon the truth? Thou hast stricken them, but they have not grieved. Thou hast consumed them, but they have refused to receive correction. They have made their faces harder than a rock. They have refused to return. They say the Lord lives. God works, and they reject it all. It has no effect upon them, no impact upon them. They're never moved. Therefore I said, surely these are poor, they are foolish, for they know not the way of the Lord, nor the judgment of their God. Though they say. Then notice over in Ezekiel 33. Ezekiel 33. Verses 31 and 32. And they come unto thee as thy people cometh, and they sit before thee as my people, and they hear thy words, all good things. But, there it is again, but, they will not do them. They hear, they have no intention of doing. For with their mouth they show much love, but their heart goeth after their covetousness. And lo, Thou art unto them as a very lovely song. Oh, we love the songs about Christ. We love the great hymns. It's good. That's good. That doesn't save you, though. Of one that hath a pleasant voice, and can play well on an instrument. For they hear thy words, but they do them not. And when this cometh to pass, lo, it will come. Then shall they know that a prophet hath been among them. Judgment will come. It will come. They professed, but they did not have works. And this is what James is speaking of. The error that James is addressing is this teaching that all that is necessary to be saved is to assent to some basic facts of the gospel. If you say you agree, here are the facts. If you say you agree with them, you're saved. This is what James is correcting. This is what Christ is correcting. A mere intellectual belief in biblical facts does not necessarily result in a changed life. Salvation always results in a changed life. So James is dealing with what we would call today easy believism. It is the grave and damning errors of James. The errors that he's addressing is what most evangelicals in the United States and so-called fundamentalists of our day practice. That's what James is condemning. That's what Christ is condemning. It is this erroneous teaching, a mere mental assent to gospel facts. And what this does is it results in tactics. It causes one to be a salesman for Christ almost. And they use tactics to try to get professions. That's the whole goal, is to get professions of faith. That's the whole goal in evangelical circles today. So they will ask questions to the lost sinner. Do you believe in God? Well, yeah, I believe in God. A lot of lost people believe in God. Do you believe in Jesus Christ? Oh, yeah, I believe that. Do you know you're a sinner? Well, I imagine I am. Are you willing to admit that you are a sinner? Yeah. I mean, most people would give assent to all these things. Do you believe in the cross? Do you believe in the resurrection? And let's say the individual gives positive affirmation to all of those. Repeat this prayer. Repeat this prayer. And then they're told, never forget. You got to remind them that because nothing's been done. Never forget. Someone that's saved, you don't have to tell them, don't forget. They know. They know the Lord saved them. Now, never forget this decision that you've made for Christ. Don't forget that. And then they're told, based on this decision, you're going to heaven. Oh, that's good. That's great. But it's all false. It's all false. We had 35 professions of faith today. Out there witnessing, we had 35 professions of faith. Not a one of them come to the house of God. We had 35 professions. They're empty. They're empty. And this is the teaching that has cheapened and brought down salvation to a mere decision. Salvation is more than a decision. It's a miracle. It's a miracle that God performs within a sinner. And today, masses of people have been duped into believing that a mere head knowledge of gospel truths proves that they are saved. The problem is they equate embracing biblical facts with salvation. It's not one and the same. James, if you go back to James 2, exposes this. And he gives warning. He says in verse 14, James 2, verse 14, he that hath faith, not works. He hath faith and not works. That's a problem. Verse 17, faith, if it hath not works. Still addressing the same problem. Verse 20, faith without works. Verse 26, faith without works. So there's a problem repeated. Faith without works. A profession, but there's nothing in the life that aligns with what they're saying. Faith without works. In verse 24, notice those last two words, faith only. And concerning this, twice, what doth it profit? In verse 17, again, if faith hath not works, is dead. It's a dead faith. Being alone, that is without works. Verse 20, faith without works is dead. Verse 26, faith without works is dead. It's unproductive faith. So James likens faith without works to a corpse without life. That corpse has no use. Faith without works, it's empty. It's empty. A faith with no internal life principle. There has to be within us internal life principle, which is Jesus Christ in us. Common sense says if Christ dwells in us, that has to manifest itself. That has to manifest itself in life. So in these verses, James is telling us that there is a nominal faith and there is a real faith. There is intellectual faith and there is heart faith. There is dead faith and there is living faith. There is a faith that is considered to be orthodox, yet it has no more saving value than the faith of demons. This is what James is warning about. And I believe it's what Christ is speaking of as well. A belief in God that is not a force in life. A belief in God that does not draw us near to Him. And that leaves us indifferent toward God. Well, I believe in God, I just don't want Him in my life. That's not saving faith. So it's a faith that does not have a correspondent behavior. That's not saving faith. Again, verbal profession does not make it so. Notice in 1 John, no one spoke more of this than John. 1 John, chapter 1, verse 6. If we say, and we're just going to read this phrase, if we say. Well, let's go on. If we say that we have fellowship with him and walk in darkness, we lie and do not the truth. You say one thing, but your walk says something else. Chapter 2, verse 4. He that saith, I know him, and keepeth not his commandments is a liar, and the truth is not in him. Verse 9. He that saith he is in the light and hateth his brother. He's not in the light, he's in darkness. Even until now. Chapter 3, verse 18. My little children, let us not love in word, neither in tongue, but in deed and in truth. 1 John 4, verse 20. If a man say, you see, man can say anything. If a man say, I love God, and hateth his brother, he's a liar. He's a liar. For he that loveth not his brother whom he hath seen, how can he love God, whom he hath not seen? Faith and practice must align. A true and genuine saving faith is energetic, it's vigorous, it's passionate, it humbles the soul, it revolutionizes the life of an individual, fills them with a deep love for the Lord, and a conviction for the things of God. And then if we go back in closing, back to Matthew 7, verse 22, there's another warning. And it's works. Okay, so we've been told if there's a faith and it's void of works, that's not a true faith. But then in verse 22, there's a warning against works that aren't real. So mere works doesn't mean that faith is genuine, because there's a work. There's a works that isn't real. So verse 22, many will say unto me in that day, Lord, Lord. So again, they're claiming a relationship. Have we not prophesied in thy name? Have we not preached in thy name? Have we not taught in thy name? You can preach and not be saved. You can teach and not be saved. You can preach truth and not be saved. You can teach truth and not be saved. And in thy name have cast out devils. That's doing miracles, miraculous things, amazing things. And in thy name done many wonderful works. But he ends up professing, I never knew you. So what's that tell us? Well, it tells us that works do not save. Saving faith will produce works. But works will not produce salvation. And that's what he's teaching here in verse 22. So in other words, profession is not enough. And works isn't sufficient either. But the truth that James is bringing out is if you have saving faith, you're truly saved, you will have works. But those works don't save you. Those works didn't save you. They're a manifestation that you are saved. So a true, genuine profession of saving faith, we must have it. You can't be saved without faith. But there are counterfeit faiths. There's a counterfeit belief. Works do not save. Works are the result of salvation. But remember also there are counterfeit works as well. So he gives warning. And it's a warning that all need to heed because of the importance of salvation. No one will get to heaven without salvation. And salvation is faith in Jesus Christ. But it's a faith that will result in a changed life. That's salvation. There are people that would have you to believe that you can be saved and it has no impact on your life. I'm sorry, I don't believe that's what the Bible teaches at all. I don't believe it's so. Salvation is the greatest miracle there is. And it can't happen. You can't experience it and it not have an impact upon you. It's going to have an impact upon our lives. And we're thankful for that. That salvation isn't just a profession of faith. And we need to be careful that we do not promote that all a person has to do is say they're saved. But at the same time, we have to be careful. We're not salvation sheriff either. The Lord knows who He saved. So there's two things there. We have to be careful that we do not promote, that we do not bring down the miracle of salvation. And we've got to be careful also that we don't get so self-righteous that we become the salvation sheriff, the salvation police. At some point, you just leave it in God's hands. Brother Ben, if you'll come and lead us a verse of song.